Hey everybody, it's me, Bruce Curlis, also known as Star. I'm up here in Grafton, and I'm sitting on a rock, and I intentionally chose this rock that jets out of the hillside here at Hassanamesit, looking down at the arbor and where the fire pit is that many of you have been to before. I've been coming here since I've been 5 years old, so actually before I was 5 years old, but in my memory, when I was about 5 years old, I started having my memories of coming to this place here in Grafton. I'm sitting here doing this video because I want people to think about this place. Grafton's an important part of who we are. Hassanamesit Indian Reservation is an important part of who we are as Nipmuc. We're in a very fractured place within our community at this particular point in time. And I decided I was going to put this on video because I've had some questions about things that are happening to Nipmuc. And when I say Nipmuc, I mean all of us. Nipmuc is Nipmuc is Nipmuc is one of the things that I was taught by elders who no longer walk this place, but I remember as a young child, and I remember as a young man that were still around and had the opportunity to give me some really, really good lessons. But this rock is important to me because I remember it's one of my first memories of a place I like to sit, and I was always disappointed if somebody else was camped out on it because I couldn't sit on it, and I would wait sometimes over by the arbor or up on the hill or running around being a little crazy, because I was a little crazy, and then grew into a man and started to understand who I was. I'm doing this video not for any other reason other than I'm concerned about what's happening for us at this particular moment in time. And there are some things, as a former tribal councilman, as a former chairman of the Mass Commission on Indian Affairs, that I think are lost within the confusion of power dynamics and people wanting power. Currently, I'm just a citizen like most of the people who will look at this. I'm a survivor of the fractured community that we have, people who are related to me distantly or even more closely who were disenfranchised by our federal process. And we have a lot of confusion of who is really in control, who has the power, who has the right to have power, which is really ultimately going to be left up to us as people. We are a community of a lot of individuals who have a lot of great ideas to get us to the end. And I don't mean the end of who we are, although another fracture in our community may just do that. I don't think it will set apart that Chibunagungumog exists, that Natick exists, that Quabbin people exist, that people who are floating around in our community knowing they're Nipmuc but not knowing what that means or how that plays out within our dynamic of us as a people. But I've asked some questions that I want to have everyone else think about asking as well. Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council, NNTC, we're hearing it called lots of things, was put in place as a group of three entities. One was Hassanamesit, one was Chibunagungumog, and the other was the Nipmuc Tribal Acknowledgement Project based in Worcester, to come together to try to bring us to federal recognition as a whole people, even though it left out people, but it was really trying to absorb Nipmuc. Based on that and how things moved forward, we struggled and were stuck, and looking at guidelines that were established and continuity of community and gaps in time that happen everywhere, not just here in Nipmuc, but happen everywhere. What does that role look like? 546 people. Now everyone's struggling to get back. Some people it's for a card, some people it's for an identity. No matter what the case may be. I was on the committee that drafted the Constitution for NNTC, and I've been asking this question, and it's about what gives it an authority. The people originally gave it authority, the 546 people who were allowed to vote on it, the 546 people that it represented, which was made up mostly of Hassanamesit people by the time all was said and done. And now we're in a place where we've missed 3 elections, and no one is duly appointed. Under that Constitution, and I encourage people to look and try to find it and get it, um, it was set up to help people and absorb that particular piece. I'm not sure how that works. So I'm asking the question of what gives Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council, this interim government, the authority to act within that Constitution, because everything is duly elected and there is no current duly elected tribal council. There are rules within that gave tribal council lots of authority, ultimate authority mostly. It absorbed the Elders Council, which is the traditional government with the chief of Hassanamesit, into that, giving them the traditional authority around the activities of traditional government in those particular pieces. So constitutionally, how I see it is that we're running under a de facto, non-existent constitution that is happening. Why is that? I'm not sure, but I'm not blaming anyone. One of the pieces I do not want to do is blame anyone. It's just what happened. It's what fractured our community. Our community as a whole was fractured. Now everyone's trying to come back, get back people into the folds. Under the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, the Executive Order 126 signed by Mike Dukakis back in the 70s, calls us the Nipmuc tribe, not Nipmuc Nation. That's one piece of it. It also says anything to the Nipmuc tribe will be under the authority of Hassanamesit. Hassanamesit and Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council are 2 completely different entities. They were then, and they currently are now. I believe that an application process for people who've already gone through an application process, and I'm already a member under Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council, and I was a member of Hassanamesit Band before that, and I was a member of Chabanagungumog Band before that because of my family and how they married and how they intermarried. So I understand people are looking to try to belong. I believe that somehow within this there is a way for us to belong. There is a way for us all to come together. However, I'm not sure if it is under a guise of something called Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council that does not include everyone, all of the families, a family dynamic, a family power. We're looking at a time where chaos could really destroy us. There are people who don't want to participate, and I understand that. They're hurt, they're harmed. It may take generations for that harm to go away. I don't understand that from the perspective of those people because I wasn't one of those people. However, as a Nipmuc, it is my responsibility, just like it's every Nipmuc person's responsibility, to figure out what is the best way forward for us. I believe that I would challenge any election that takes place. I would challenge any council that put themselves into place other than Grafton, other than the traditional government that we've always had, which is an Elders Council in Chief. It's the same thing when I mentioned 50 years ago, as a 5-year-old I came, and Zara was that chief. And the elders that she put on her advisory council were her advisors and the council. I believe it's time for us to go back to that. I believe we have the opportunity, if we go back to that, to also create a nation, a true nation, that creates the autonomy of the bands, but also a centralized government that can assist the autonomy of the bands, where no one as one entity tries to rule and make people believe that they are more than what they're not. So I think that people need to start asking those questions. I encourage people to ask the questions. What you're not sure about, please ask the questions. I want to see everyone back together. I want to see those families that have been missing from Nipmuc for way too long to be part of Nipmuc again. And I'm going to get up and I'm going to turn the camera in just a moment because I want people to see what the reservation looks like when it's not the fair time. Because in reality, this is our home. This is a place that even other bands used to come to call home, because it is a central location that's always been in existence. Even though we belong other places. It's home. And we have to acknowledge our history. We have to acknowledge our mistakes. We have to have an opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm Nipmuc, you're Nipmuc. That's all that matters. Not, oh, you haven't been here for very long, so you're not Nipmuc. Well, it takes people different times to come home. When I moved back 3 years ago, I stepped away for quite a while, and I moved away, and that was okay because I needed that break. But it's time that we stand up. It's time that we stand up as a nation and say we want to be a unified voice, a unified body. We want to be who we are. But I will tell you that there's some facts out there that are being eschewed for whatever it is. It's always about power in leadership. And I applaud people who are willing to step up and take leadership. Thank you. Power, that's a whole nother story. I'm not sure if we all agree on the same idea of power, and we need to be able to agree on that. So I'm going to flip the camera. I want you all to please take the time to ask the hard questions. Don't be sheep. We've had enough of that in our life, and that's how we've gotten to where we are. Our community can't afford to be fractured anymore. I am hoping that I can assist. I do not want power. I do not want leadership. I've had my opportunity. It's time for another generation to do that, and I appreciate that they're going to do that. However, what I do want is I want us to be able to develop our community. I want for us to be able to come together and hug each other and say, hey cousin, how are you? Because a lot of you are related to me, somehow, some way. And if you're not, I still think of you as family. You're part of my Nipmuc family. So I think about me as that 5-year-old. Sometimes I just come up here to think. Sometimes I come up here and I'll sit and have a business meeting on my phone now because of the COVID. We have enough fracturing going on in our nation that we don't need a fracturing within our tribal community. So if we can welcome people home and not have to have them go through the process, which is my understanding of how things can work, then we should do that. And I would endorse that and thoroughly stand behind our traditional government, because more than anything else, our traditional government is what holds us together. Nothing we can put together as individuals holds like the wisdom of our ancestors. And I came here to Grafton to do this because this is where my ancestors are. This is where the people that I knew 50 years ago and forward are. They're still here. I come to the fair and I think about who set up over there, or used to set up over there, or who used to set up over there, or who used to have their stand back there. Actually, when I was a little kid, nobody was back there, but now we have so many people that there are. And the people who come to see us. And yet, are we unified? I'm not sure. Can we be unified? That I'm sure of. Will it take a long time? It could. It's all up to us. So I ask you to talk with your families. Think about what's in our best interest. Think about what moves us forward. Think about the questions. Is our Constitution valid? Do we have an expired government? There is no provision within our Constitution for an interim government. When it died, it died. Electing a government that doesn't include everyone is like putting the cart before the horse. We have to bring our community together first. So I wish you all best. I'm hoping this isn't too long for you to watch the whole thing. I'm glad you stayed if you did stay. And thank you. And know that, I was taught this from my uncle, Black Eagle's son, who's out in Arizona, that I love you all. New Mexico, excuse me. Not Arizona, but New Mexico. I love you all no matter what. I don't have to like you all, but I do love you all because you're my family. You're Nipmuc. So just take a peek around. Just look. It's wonderful. It's who we are. It's where we come from. It's a ground that our families have come to for a really, really long time. It's a place where I grew up in lots of ways, and it's a place where I learned a lot from some of those old-timers who sat around. But it's home, and we want to welcome you home, and I want to welcome you home, and I hope that we can all do it. And it's not about one group over the other. because every group is included in what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish and what's taking place. But I do have to say that Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council was put in place for federal recognition, and that doesn't make us who we are. Who makes us who we are is each and every one of you. Thanks.